Hello, Sleuth Squad. Welcome to Let's Talk Criminal, where we will delve deep into true crime cases, exploring the stories of people whose lives were changed forever by the actions of others. We are your hosts. I am Madison Brummett,
And I'm Melissa Missman.
and today we'll be exploring the tragic and heartbreaking story of Sydney Sutherland, a young woman whose life was abruptly taken away in 2020. This case has left a profound impact on her family, community, and everyone who has followed her story. Let's walk through the details of her life, her disappearance, and the search that ensued, and all the shocking events that led to her death.
Sydney Sutherland was just 25 years old when she went missing on a routine jog near her home in Arkansas. What followed was a desperate search, which ultimately uncovered a horrifying truth about what happened to her. This case is both heart-wrenching tragedy and a grim reminder of the dangers that can lurk in the most unexpected places. Stay with us as we uncover the events that led to Sydney's death and the chilling truth behind her disappearance.
Now, you live in Arkansas.
I did for 12 years. And
How far were you from this case? I mean, because you were there the time that this all happened, right?
yes, we were maybe an hour from where it all happened because where she was right outside of Newport, I believe. And Newport took us about 45 minutes to get to. It was on our way to Jonesboro.
Okay.
There was a lot of people that I knew and that knew her
Oh,
through someone else or just different relations.
very small.
Very, very small area. And even though it was an hour from where we were, they still knew each other, you know.
Right. Now, did you feel the impact in your community, like where you were?
It was, you started to see, her favorite color was pink. And so a lot of pink popped up, and there would be, pink days for Sydney. And especially when, after she was found and whatnot, there were more pink ribbons on cars or people painting their windows. That's big out there. Like everyone paints their windows and does the chalk type drawings on the windows.
Okay.
So, you know,
Kind of like the window art that you would see like around Christmas
yes,
time with the
yes, but
pink.
on
Okay.
cars.
Oh,
And
okay.
so, like, people would, wear Sydney, help find Sydney and that things like that. And then, justice for Sydney and all different hashtags that she had
Wow.
for her.
Wow. And so now this is a case that you had chosen, obviously, because it was close to home.
Yep.
Um, so let's go ahead and dive right in, and you can start by telling us, who was Sydney? Tell me more about Sydney.
Sydney's heart was undeniably big. She had an innate ability to connect with the people and always made them feel comfortable around her. Her friends and family described her as compassionate, someone who always listened to them when others needed to talk, and someone who genuinely cared about others' well being. Her kindness wasn't just about words, it was about her actions. Sydney volunteered her time helping others, whether it was assisting her parents with community projects or supporting local causes. She also had a very special bond with children, and many of her loved ones recalled her eagerness to help with her care of younger cousins and friends. Sydney's natural maternal instincts made her an ideal role model for younger generations. She was also incredibly loyal, and when someone was fortunate enough to be in her circle of friends, they knew they had a friend for life. So, Sydney Ray Sutherland was born December 1st, 1993, in Grubbs, Arkansas, a small rural community in Jackson County. And from a young age, Sydney exhibited a vibrant personality, coupled with a sense of purpose that defined her throughout her life. She was raised in a loving family with her parents, siblings, and a network of close friends who adored her. Her family's tight-knit support system shaped Sydney into a compassionate and driven woman that she would later become. Karen and Kenny were Sydney's parents. They were described as a joyful, kind-hearted people. Growing up in a supportive community, Sydney was instilled with a sense of love and empathy. The Sutherlands were a family who valued hard work, respect, and their community, qualities that Sydney carried into her adulthood. She learned the value of family and friendship early on, and these values would guide her as she navigated the different chapters of her life.
So basically, sounds like, I mean, they were very well-respected, close family with big ties to the community.
Yes, and that obviously would later come to show with after everything that happened, how quickly everyone jumped up and was on board to help and just be there for them and show their love and support like they had showed love and support throughout their whole life. And despite the challenges that life sometimes threw her way, Sydney always maintained a positive outlook. She had a deep sense of resilience that allowed her to persevere through difficulties. Whether in her personal or professional life, she never gave up. Sydney's ambition and determination was evident to everyone who knew her. She was a young woman who not only dreamed big, but actively worked toward those dreams with relentless dedication. And one of the most defining aspects of Sydney's personality was her independence. She wasn't someone who waited for opportunities to come to her. She made them. Sydney was determined to achieve her goals and carve out a future for herself, one where she could make a meaningful impact.
And now Sydney was a nurse, right?
Yes, she went to, after high school, Sydney attended the Arkansas State University in Jonesboro, which is actually a really nice school. I used to drive by there all the time because Jonesboro is like a big happening place. So very, very nice school, very predominant school. People from all over the state would go there.
Okay.
Yes. Um,
Now, was it like a party school, like how ASU is here, or like for us Arizonians?
I wouldn't say I would that they were more of a huge party school. I think you would go to
Just like your
University of
typical.
Arkansas.
Okay.
Yeah, you'd be a Razorback and have to party.
No, that's the Razorbacks. That's the you have a shirt. It's the warthog, right?
It's not a warthog. It's just a hog.
It looks like Pumbaa.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yes, definitely. No, the Arkansas State, they're actually the Red Wolves.
Okay.
So,
oh, I like them.
Yeah, they have good logo.
Right.
Yeah.
Better than the pig?
No hog. No hog. So after high school, Sydney attended the Arkansas State University in Jonesboro, where she pursued a degree in nursing. This choice reflected her deep-rooted passion for helping others. Sydney always knew she wanted to be in a career that allowed her to make a tangible difference in people's lives, and nursing seemed like the perfect fit. She had a nurturing spirit, and the idea of caring for the sick and vulnerable resonated deeply with her. Sydney wasn't just going into healthcare for the career, she was doing it because she genuinely wanted to make people feel better, physically and emotionally. Her decision to study nursing was just another example of her selflessness and determination to leave a positive mark on the world. Her professional aspirations weren't limited to just nursing, though. Sydney was also interested in fitness, and she exercised regularly, running, and participated in activities that promoted both physical and mental well-being. This passion for wellness and fitness was one of the reasons she started taking her regular jobs in the area of growth. She loved staying active and healthy, and it gave her peace of mind.
I tried getting into jogging. I mean, don't get me wrong. I see your face. Don't get me wrong. I was very active growing up. I played volleyball and basketball, and I hated running back then. And now it's like, I mean, I did not get this body by running. So, I mean, power to anybody out there who likes to go for runs. I'm trying to get back into it.
I ain't even gonna lie to you.
It's not working.
I ain't trying. I ain't even trying.
Now, around that area that she would go jogging, was it a very beautiful area? Like, was the scenery? Because for me, like, I can't run on tracks. I feel like a hamster stuck in a wheel going in just one big circle.
Yeah, and I'm like that too. Like if I am gonna be running or jogging or walking more like it, I want to be outside. I want
Yeah.
to be where I can look at stuff, and I want to be where it's not too hot, not too humid, Um, but I want to be able to look at stuff. And back in Arkansas, I used to love whenever we take the kids on walks and we go across the street because there was a bunch of cows. so
Okay.
the kids could look at the cows, and we had something to look at.
The moo-moos.
The moo-moos.
The moo-moos.
I mean, yeah,
That's where I'd want to walk too.
yeah.
Is it weird? I love the smell of cows. I know. Please don't give me that look. Take a drink. You
Yeah.
see me in a different light now, don't you?
I do.
All right.
This is bringing a lot to light.
It makes a lot of sense now. Oh my goodness gracious.
She says, in my free time, I sniff Sharpies too.
Not Sharpies, but the good smelling markers from like elementary school. Don't you remember those?
I do,
Like the
and I
chocolate
even
and the
had those. I
strawberry.
had those in beauty school, and shout out to my beauty school teacher, Robin. That was like the first thing she did was pass out a pack of those like thin tips and mini markers that were the Scentables or whatever, you know.
So you have a bunch of hairstylists sniffing markers in the back.
And we also deal with bleach all day and hair color. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. You should have seen when we were doing nails, you know. All the alcohol in the air.
Oh my goodness.
But Sydney, though.
Yes, please. Let's continue with Sydney.
So outside of Sydney's work and her studies, Sydney loved exploring in the outdoors. Growing up in rural Arkansas gave her a deep appreciation for the natural beauty surrounding her, and she would often go hiking, running, or simply enjoy the serenities of the forest, lakes, and trails nearby. This love for nature also reflected in her lifestyle, and she was someone who found solace in the simple things. Sydney had a close group of friends, many of them whom she had known for years, and she was that glue that kept the group together, always encouraging others to take on new adventures or to embrace positive challenges. Whether she was sharing her favorite book, spending time with her family, or enjoying a peaceful afternoon in nature, Sydney's life was full of the small moments that made her world bright.
She sounds like a fantastic young lady.
Even books. You guys could have read lots of books together.
Oh, she would have been my bestie minus that jogging.
Yep.
I'd watch her from afar.
Root her on, cheer her on.
Yeah.
But Sydney had a deep family connection, though, too. It wasn't just with her friends. Sydney's family was the heart of her world, and she was especially close to her parents and siblings, with whom she shared an incredible close bond. She was a loving daughter, always wanting to make sure her parents were proud of her, and a thoughtful sister, nurturing her relationships with her siblings. And her parents often spoke of Sydney's thoughtful gestures, whether it was helping her mother with household chores or surprising her family with special meals or gifts. She was the kind of person who always thought of those first, like others first, and took time to make everyone around her feel appreciated. So, just being a good person all around, it was just makes you wonder,
Right.
One of those you never know. But so Sydney's friends, though, they described her as someone who truly cared about their well-being. One of her best friends, Megan, spoke of Sydney's ability to brighten any room she walked into, not just because of her beautiful smile, but because of her warmth and authenticity. She was supportive, always offering a helping hand when her friends needed it most. Her ability to make others laugh and feel seen made her an invaluable friend to many. Even in her more challenging moments, Sydney still found ways to offer encouragement and positivity. Positivity. Good word.
It's a great word. Love that word.
Yes. So Sydney offered encouragement and positivity to those who were lucky enough to know her. So at Sydney's core, she was kind, compassionate, resilient, and determined. And she was the kind of person who lit up the world around her. She was deeply connected to her family, her friends, her community, and sought to make the world a better place through her actions. Whether it was through her career ambitions in nursing, her love for fitness, or her simple but meaningful connections with those she loved, Sydney embodied a spirit of generosity and positivity.
She sounds amazing.
Yeah. I mean, just from hearing everyone talk about her and watching all of the news conferences or press conferences, whatever you want to call them, I never met her, but I felt like I had.
Right.
Just because of
how people spoke of her.
Yes, and how, how much it affected everyone. And it wasn't just some, you know, random person or anything like that. It was someone that truly impacted the community.
Right.
So very, very sad. Um, you know, Sydney wasn't just a bright light to those who knew her. She was a person with dreams, a young woman with a bright future that held a promise. And her life, though tragically was cut short, was one that reflected the best, very best of humanity, with her kindness, love, and desire to make the world better. And though Sydney's life was taken too short, the legacy she leaves behind is undeniable. Her memory continues to live on through the love and admiration of her family, friends, and the many people whose lives she touched. Sydney's unwavering positivity, compassion, and dedication to those around her make her a symbol of everything good in the world. Her life, though brief, was one marked by meaning, and her impact on others is a testament to the type of person who she was. So, in conclusion, Sydney was a bright soul, a woman who embodied the qualities of kindness, strength, and determination. She lived her life with a full heart of love, always striving to help others, support her family, and achieve her dreams. Her death was a tragic loss, but the story of who a person,
Of who she was as a person.
yeah, the story of who she was as a person, the energy she brought into the world, and the love she left behind continues to inspire. She remains a beloved daughter, sister, friend, and a reminder of the incredible power of compassion and kindness.
So now that we know who Sydney was as a person down to her core, I want to talk more about the day of her disappearance. So I wanted, because honestly, like back, I mean, this happened when 2020.
2020.
2020. I, had both my children at that time. I stayed away from news. I was all about Bluey and kids shows and whoever else. But so I didn't really hear about this until you brought it up to me. And then I had to, digging and doing some of the research and stuff. So I want to know more about like what led up to this, especially for somebody who is so kind and loving and portrayed, um, as a strong person, especially in the community and the people around her.
And I think that, excuse me, it was what was most shocking about how it all happened and what happened, because how does this
Horrible thing.
amazing person
Right.
go through such a horrible thing, and someone who did nothing but brighten the world, and someone so dark and dim just come and take that.
Right.
you
Right.
know?
It's not saying that like anybody deserves, death or murder or anything along those lines, but for it to happen to somebody like Sydney is incredibly heartbreaking. And as a mother, and I know you could probably relate to this too, but like as a mother of two little ones, like I am a helicopter mom. Like I try not to be,
Yeah.
because I definitely wasn't raised that way. Like my parents gave me freedom to do
Yeah,
whatever, whenever, and learn from my mistakes and try to grow as a person. But now it's like I don't even want Raylyn out of my sight, or Connor out of my sight. So it's extremely scary.
And to be doing something that she did on a daily basis.
Right. Right. It's not even like a one-off thing like, oh, hey, I woke up today and I'm gonna go run for the first time in 7 years.
Yeah.
It was
Something that
something.
was done on a daily, and in a routine that was, that was a habit, and you know, uh, just
Horrible.
freak,
Yeah.
freak.
So let's go over the day that Sydney disappeared. So on August 19th, 2020, Sydney laced up her running shoes for her usual afternoon jog. Running was more than just exercise for her, it was a way to stay healthy and unwind. Known in her community as an avid runner, Sydney's fitness routine was a huge part of her life. It wasn't unusual for her to take a jog through the quiet roads near her home. She found joy in the simple things, the rhythmic sound of her feet hitting the pavement, the peacefulness of nature surrounding, um, the rush of endorphins from the physical exertion. That afternoon, as she ran along a familiar route near Grubbs, everything felt perfectly normal. There were no signs that anything unusual would happen. For Sydney, this was just another peaceful moment in a life full of love, joy, and the promise of a bright future. It was a warm, sunny day, typical of an Arkansas summer. Yeah, I've never been in Arkansas during summer, but if it's anything like Texas,
She's bless her.
Sydney left her home in Grubbs around 2 p.m. and set off down a quiet country road she knew well. One she had jogged many times without incident, but this time something went terribly wrong. Um, the first signs of trouble, hours had passed, and by evening, Sydney had not returned home. Concern began to grow, and her family, realizing that something was not right, began to search the area themselves. Her boyfriend, friends, and family knew that Sydney never went without contact, so growing sense of worry was the growing sense of worry was palpable. By 7 p.m., Sydney was officially reported missing. The small town of Grubbs, known for its quiet, rural atmosphere, was suddenly shaken by the reality that one of their own was unaccounted for. Local law enforcement sprang into action, organizing search parties to comb through the surrounding areas, looking for any sign of Sydney. This search would soon turn into something much more sinister. And going back to the local law enforcement and the search and everything else, you hear these horror stories in small rural towns or communities where law enforcement actually dropped the ball, and they're like, oh, she's young, she's probably out,
She
she
ran
probably
away. She
yeah.
went to the bar. She got a lot on her plate, things like that.
So it's nice to read where law enforcement
Actually cared.
actually cared. They
Not that
stepped
they don't always care, but they didn't brush it off.
exactly. It
That's the
wasn't
thing.
just
I shouldn't say that they didn't care. It was that they didn't brush it off.
to where she's just out. She stopped for a drink. She stopped by friends that you haven't
She
contacted.
went for
Whatever.
a longer
Yeah.
run, things like that. No, they legitimately cared
Yeah,
and were
they
worried.
spring into action.
Yeah.
And I mean that can be detrimental, especially for anybody who is missing or kidnapped or anything like. I mean,
Not jumping right on it
yeah, the
is
first
the difference. First
yeah,
first
the
48.
first 48 hours. I mean, they
Yeah.
literally made a show about how detrimental the first 48 hours are. And even for younger kids, it's the first 3 hours.
Yeah.
It's just
A
it's
lot happens.
yeah. Yeah,
A lot can happen.
exactly. And the search for Cindy became a massive operation. It wasn't just the police, it was family, friends, and volunteers who joined law enforcement in scouring the rural roads, fields, and nearby wooded areas. Authorities also used helicopters, drones, and dogs in the search, but there were no immediate leads. With each passing hour, the fear that something awful had happened to Sydney grew stronger. And the people of Grubbs and the surrounding areas railed together to help. Flyers were posted everywhere, and the hashtag Find Sydney quickly gained traction on social media. The local community's support was overwhelming, but it didn't change the fact that Sydney remained missing, and no clues had yet emerged. And then later, days later actually, on August 22nd, a major break came. Sydney's body was discovered not far from where she had last been seen. The discovery of her body sent shockwaves through the community. What had initially seemed like a tragic but natural disappearance had now turned into something much darker. Police began to look into the circumstances surrounding her death more carefully. And it's weird, not weird, but I find it interesting how you have all these people.
I knew you were going to this. I
Yeah.
knew, because that's the first thing that I think too.
Is that all these people are searching, and clearly they searched the area in which she's last
Known.
known, like last been known to frequent or whatever,
Where she was jogging.
where she was jogging, and she was found not far from that location. So it almost makes you wonder, like, okay, was the body there the entire time and it was missed, or
Did someone take her, bring her
back?
back, make
Yeah.
it look like an accident? You know.
What are the circumstances around it?
Yeah. Why?
Like,
Why?
how can you?
Yeah. How do you and you hear so many of those stories where it's like, we searched for days and things like that, and then then
They had the dogs
and
and helicopters and drones.
but then the body shows up
near
2 feet from on the other side of the tree, on the other side of the road. And
You're right. Even
did no one look there?
right, no, and especially, I mean, given who her family and friends and the community as a whole were, that they were searching
And
every
like,
inch.
you see those videos where they're walking hand in hand and just have this long line of people up, that they're not missing anything.
Right.
They're not.
No, not at all.
So it just makes you wonder, did someone take her?
Well, that's what I wonder.
And bring her back
right,
and try to be discreet and try to get away with it?
maybe you know what? Yes, I did the research and I put this all together and we're plugging in and everything else, but I still don't know the ins and outs of the story. So I'm learning along with our
Yeah.
audience here.
Yeah.
So it's just it's crazy. It really is.
Yeah.
The things that happen out there in this world. And I'm gonna kind of jump a little. So we all know that somebody was arrested.
Yeah.
In this case.
And charged with
Her murder.
capital murder.
Yep. So I kind of want to jump into who this person was.
Okay.
Okay.
Tell me about him.
Oh,
the devil himself.
Oh yeah, it definitely wasn't him. So Quake Michael Llewellyn.
I don't even like the name.
I don't even like the name either.
Yeah.
Quake.
I did.
And honestly, he was like what, 6'4", 300 pounds. So he was a Quake. Oh, that I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I don't have a filter. I'm sorry. I am sorry.
And you know what hurts me, and not that what you said hurts me, but just whenever, like, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a unique name, like people now in these days, they give their kids all these unique names. And Quake, okay, definitely something different, but I will never look at some little kid that has that name and be able to
disassociate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because every time I hear that name, or I think of what happened, I see his mugshot
Right.
in my face, and I'm just like, makes me sick.
Right.
Makes me absolutely sick.
Right. Well, and it's like, I mean, I know so many guys named Jeff, but every time I hear the name Jeffrey, guess who I think of?
Dahmer.
Yes, I do. So I totally get it.
Yeah.
But back to Quake here. So Quake Michael Llewellyn was born on March 31st, 1992 in Grubbs, Arkansas, a small rural town in the north. So they grew up together.
Mm-hmm. And he is a little over a year older than Sydney. So you know they knew each other.
Yeah.
No.
Right. Even if they didn't run in the same circles, it's a small southern town.
Very, yes.
Okay, so Llewellyn grew up in a community where people tended to know each other very well, and he was no exception. He was described by those who knew him as a quiet, somewhat introverted individual. His family history was unremarkable. didn't point to any major early signs of violent tendencies. He was not raised in a particular I got a little tongue tied there. He was not raised in an abusive environment, and there were no reports of trauma or neglect during his childhood that could explain a violent future. He was not a troublemaker in his youth and had no criminal record leading up to the tragic events of August 2020. He had a high school education and later he worked in construction, a profession he held at the time of Sydney Sutherland's murder. This job required him to work around the area, but he had no prior criminal associations or history of violent behavior. Oh, see, and I read somewhere that so the internet, the good old Google,
Good old Google.
good old Google. When you're doing the research, you have a lot where it says that he had no prior, history of crime.
Yeah.
But then there's some reports that say he had criminal, like a criminal history of not necessarily violent, but aggressive behavior.
Yeah. I could see
So
it.
it's like, okay, which Google
Yeah.
report is correct?
Which news we watching?
Which news are we going to watch
Yeah.
today? I just find that interesting.
Maybe he never got like served time or ticketed
just
or
like
anything like that.
misdemeanors or something.
But
Yeah.
based on, maybe
What
past
we would
experiences,
okay.
With people, and someone could say, oh yeah, he, just throwing out examples, I have no clue. He beat up his girlfriend one time, or,
Which would show that he has
animal
a violent
abuse or whatever like that. And then someone's
Pyro.
like,
I mean,
exactly.
yeah.
You know, he was known to do this and known to do that. But then, other people see a completely different side of that person.
Right.
Never once did he raise his voice. Never once did he, show any aggression or anything. And
Right.
he loved animals and he did this and he did that. And he was hardworking and,
yeah.
model citizen and things like that. But
people snap.
Yeah.
But we don't, I mean, I don't know. I don't think, yes, I understand that people can snap, but I feel like this was very drastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Complete opposite ends of the spectrum.
Right.
Because you don't just go from being a quiet person to being the front page news.
Right. No. And his community described him as a regular guy, someone who was neither overly social nor disruptive. By all accounts, Llewellyn was not someone who drew attention to himself. He was considered an average young man, keeping to himself and occasionally socializing with friends and family. It was this ordinary, he was an ordinary person. And that's what made the revelation of his involvement with Sydney's death even more shocking. And I think that, I was shocked, like, because you typically see signs.
Yeah.
He had no history of psychological problems or violent outbursts, which often leads to the big question:
why?
What triggered this sudden, horrific act?
Yeah.
Why? Why would somebody just wake up, go about your day as you normally would, and
work
then
your 9 to 5?
Yeah, and then out of
decide, hey, I'm gonna go kill someone today.
Exactly. Who does that? Red Crave.
Quake Llewellyn.
Quake. Yes, Quake Llewellyn.
And I mean, there's a probably long list of others who, would do that. But
oh yeah, I'm sure we'll uncover those in
the
future podcast episodes.
Yeah. But why?
Exactly. Why? And why Sydney?
Yeah.
I mean, was it just opportunity?
Jealousy?
Crime of passion? Did he know her and, was secretly obsessed with her? Like, what?
And she turned him down. She had her boyfriend.
Yeah.
Something that he
But he was married.
He was married. Yeah.
He was married.
Jealousy. I mean, Sydney, beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Beautiful woman.
Right. She was absolutely gorgeous.
I mean, any guy. And I'm sure some women
Yes.
would, you know,
Right.
she's beautiful, beautiful girl.
Right.
So there's that, something that he could never have, and this was his chance to have it.
Yeah.
My
So let's dig into the encounter and what happened on August 19th of 2020. So, oh, that was close. My little cheat sheet over here almost flew away.
knocked me out.
Paper cut. So on not vivid. Wow, Malibu's hitting.
Oh.
I like it.
Tipsy talk.
Tipsy talk. So on August 19th, 2020, Sydney Sutherland went for her usual afternoon jog near her home, which we had gone over earlier. And Quake Llewellyn at the time was working in the area on a construction project. It was here, seemingly by chance, that he came across Sydney. And according to his confession, Llewellyn was driving his red Chevrolet Silverado when he saw Sydney jogging along a quiet road. And something about the sight of her prompted him to act. But in his statements to police, he couldn't give a clear or rational explanation for why he decided to take such drastic action. Llewellyn's actions appear to be completely impulsive. In his later police interview, Llewellyn admitted to abducting Sydney. He approached her while she was running, forced her into his truck, and then drove her to a more isolated area. There, he sexually assaulted her, and then, in a fit of panic and fear, murdered her, strangling her to death.
So opportunity.
I
It
mean,
sounds like opportunity.
that's what it sounds.
Maybe he had a bad day at work. You know?
I mean, yes, that is a very strong possibility, and it does sound. Oh, I almost knocked my drink over. And it does sound like it was opportunity, or but at the same time, like, why stop? Why not just continue driving?
Go home.
Go home.
Go
Go home
home.
to your wife.
Let her go home.
Exactly. The most disturbing aspect of the crime was the apparent lack of a clear motive, which,
Obviously.
yeah, I that extremely disturbs me.
Baffled.
Exactly. Llewellyn did not know Sydney, so I'm sure
He had to have known of her. He had to have known
it's
of
a
her.
small,
Yes.
small community. And he was what, a year older?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I grew up here. I moved to Arizona when I was 9. I live in a small town in Arizona. Well, we live in a small town now. Hey. And I knew people that were 4 grades above me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a freshman dating a senior. I married him, don't worry.
But that's
But
that's how
that's how
it
towns
is.
are.
That's how small towns are. I mean, I grew up in, California, and Laguna Hills is not, the smallest of towns, but
You still knew.
you still knew. You went to elementary school with people, then you'd split off and go to different middle schools. And at that middle school, there was, different people from different elementary schools, and then, from middle school, you might have split to different high schools.
Right, but you
And you
still
catch back up with some of those people from elementary school. By the time you get to high school, you've got elementary school, middle school, and high school, and you've got, all these people that you've
met
mixed
over
and
the front.
jived
Yeah.
with. And there'd be times where, you'd go to the opposite high school's team, like sporting events, like football night or whatever, Friday night.
Right.
And because you're meeting up with some of your friends that now go there, they've made new friends.
Right.
Those friends introduce you to more friends.
Right. Acquaintances. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they may be a grade below you, 2 grades above you, whatever the case may be.
Right.
But you can't say
You didn't know.
you didn't know.
No. No, not at all. You had to have known.
Known of. Heard of.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You know what? And I get it. They were 2 opposite people.
True.
2 completely opposite people. So they probably didn't run in the same circles and stuff like that, but he was a year older.
No, you had to
You
have
had
heard
to.
of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had to. There was no prior conflict or animosity between them. and there was no history of sexual violence or aggressive behavior towards women on his part. He had no criminal record of violence offenses. Again, that's kind of, from the research I've done,
No criminal records.
no criminal records, but there's some mixed info out there on the Googles. And there was no indication that he had any deep-seated hatred or issues with women in general. I'm sorry. Any guy
Who abducts?
who abducts,
No, sorry. Go back. Hits with your truck, abducts,
rapes,
and then strangles her.
doesn't have any animosity towards it. Please.
Yeah.
Yeah, please. He's got some issue with women in general. But this left investigators and psychologists and those who found the case grappling with a crucial question. Why would Llewellyn commit such a horrific crime against someone he didn't know?
Back to that opportunity.
Exactly. And I dug a little bit deeper on the psychological profile. Impulsivity and control. One theory put forth by psychologists and law enforcement is that Llewellyn was driven by impulsivity.
Yeah.
I can say the word.
His impulsiveness, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's just a freak thing.
Yeah.
You know what?
His decision to abduct Sydney and commit murder seemed unplanned and triggered by a moment lapse in judgment. Impulsive violence, especially when committed against a stranger, is often linked to internal factors such as frustration, social isolation, or underlying psychological issues. And we do know that he wasn't a very social person.
Yeah.
So there was that social isolation, but he was social enough to get married. For Llewellyn, there might have been a mix of personal stressors, whether related to his job, personal life, or even his general dissatisfaction with his circumstances. So it could have been maybe a jealousy thing.
Yeah.
She was very well known in the community,
And he seen her, and he's like, you know what? You know what I'm gonna do? And I'm gonna act on it.
yeah, well, and it gave him
Control.
control. It gave him the attention that he craved.
Yeah. Yeah. You go from being no one to, like I said, front cover.
Right. Some experts believe that Llewellyn may have suffered from a desire for control, a psychological need to assert dominance over another person. This can sometimes stem from a deep-seated insecurity or feeling of powerlessness. By abducting and murdering Sydney, he may have been trying to reclaim a sense of power or assert dominance in a world where he may have otherwise felt insignificant. However, the fact that he was able to function normally in society without any outward signs of aggression or instability complicates this picture. Yes, there. It complicates it.
Yeah.
He was just an ordinary guy. Nobody thought anything of him.
Yeah.
He wasn't this extraordinary person who touched so many people's lives like Sydney was.
Yeah.
But he also wasn't known as scum of the earth. He was just Joe Schmo, average Joe.
Yeah.
And it's why? That seems to be like the underlying question to everything.
Yeah.
Why would you do something like this?
He wanted to be above average.
Right. And I mean, don't get me wrong, like we're social butterflies. I know this. My husband, not a social butterfly. Well, he says he's not a social butterfly. But when you get a few drinks in him and he starts talking,
mine starts singing.
You can't shut him up.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I want to go home and I want to go to bed. I am all peopled out.
Said, come here, let me tell you about that one time.
Yeah. We recently just bought jet skis from a coworker of ours, Brad. And Casey came home and he was like, yeah, he's a cool dude. I go to work the next day and I asked Brad, I'm like, oh, so you finally got to meet the hubby? And he goes, yeah, he's a cool dude. I was like, let me guess, he invited you out mountain biking. He's like, how'd you know? Of course he did. Sure, hey, I just met you, bud, but let's go out in the desert on a bike.
Hope you don't get a flat.
Yeah. Oh my goodness gracious. But back to like the social isolation. So while there are no official diagnoses in Llewellyn's case, his actions suggest that he may have been struggling with mental health issues that went unaddressed. His quiet nature and lack of close relationships could have contributed to a sense of detachment from others, which I can see that.
Yeah.
I suffer from PTSD and depression and anxiety. I'm a basket case. My husband loves me. But I suffer from those, and without the medication, like I am a very firm believer in my therapy and my medication. And some people don't like medication, and I totally get that. You have to find
Yeah.
what works best for you. However, with two small kids, like without medication, I was gonna go crazy, and it wasn't even so much of because it was first diagnosed with postpartum, and it's just transitioned now to pure depression. um but it started off with postpartum depression, and it wasn't that I wanted to hurt my kids. I love my kids more than anything. It was the self-loathing and the thinking of, what, my kids would be so much better without me.
Yeah.
So like I totally get like mental health issues, like it's
Well, and at least you take action on it, and things like that. And that's why I think, nowadays there's been so much, and ever since COVID, and you got to think this is during COVID. The world is
oh my
shutting
god,
down at
yeah,
this time.
right,
Where the world shut down, what, March?
something like that,
March of 2020. I'm pretty sure it was.
right,
The world shut down, and this is 6 months in.
right.
Not
And
even.
COVID jacked a lot of people up. I mean, especially for those who already felt kind of like an outcast.
Yeah. Then
y-
you're
you're
locked at home.
stuck.
You're
Yeah.
stuck. You're not going out. You're definitely not pushing forward more to be more out there and this and
And
that.
social, and
Everything's cut
yeah,
off.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, COVID, honestly, I mean, yes, my postpartum was bad and stuff, but I think my depression got worse during that time. And I was still going to work. I managed a branch. And I had to go to work. Yeah, we shut our lobbies, and only people with appointments came in, and we only worked through the drive-through and whatever the case may be. But it was still difficult not being able to sit here and talk face to face.
Yeah.
And in rural communities, it's not uncommon
Common.
common for individuals to go unnoticed or unexamined for mental health struggles, which may have contributed to Llewellyn's growing sense of detachment or emotional numbness. And you live here now. You know how the medical is here. We live in a very touristy area, small town in Arizona, and I mean, I can't get into my primary care physician for basically the entire winter.
Yeah.
And then summer comes along, and you're lucky if you even get in at that point.
Yeah.
If you need a doctor, you got to go down to Phoenix or
Pretty Kingman.
over to Kingman or Bullhead or something. Llewellyn's lack of social connections may have also led to a sense of alienation, which sometimes manifests as frustration or anger. And without an outlet for those emotions, the anger can build up until it bursts out in a dangerous and violent way. Though there's no indication that Llewellyn had a history of mental illness, and remember, these are just speculations of what could have caused
Yes. Yes.
what could have caused him to act this way. The violence that he committed suggests that there was something deeply wrong beneath the surface. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you just don't wake up one day and go, you know what? I think today's the day. Today's the day I'm going to do it. You don't do that. There's something that builds up to it. And like you said, whether it's stressors from his job or his personal life or whatever the case may be, there was something that made him just snap. But it had to have been building up over time.
And who's to say, Sydney runs this routine all the time,
Right.
or this, the same track pattern of where she runs, who's to say that wasn't the first time he seen her?
Right. Right. He could have seen her multiple
Yeah.
times. He was working on a project in that area. Construction projects take more than just one day.
Yeah. They
You
take more
know,
than a week. They take more than a month, you know?
exactly. It could have been maybe something happened at home and he just wasn't, right. Obviously, he wasn't right in the head, but something happened at home and he went to work and something happened at work. And then finally he saw her running and said, you know what, screw this.
Free strike.
Yeah. Yep. And it's difficult to ignore the sexual nature of the crime, which, while not fully detailed, was evident from the way Sydney was abducted and murdered. Llewellyn's actions, including abducting her, assaulting her, and then killing her, all point to a possible sexual motivation for the crime. This is a common pattern in cases of a stranger abduction, where the attacker's motivation can often be driven by a need to exert sexual control or satisfy an urge. Um, However, Llewellyn's statements to police were inconsistent. At times, he claimed that his actions were not sexually motivated, but the nature of the crime itself, an assault followed by murder, often points to an underlying sexual impulse, even if the perpetrator tries to deny it. I'm sorry, there's no sexual. Then why did you rape her?
Yeah.
There obviously was a sexual motivation.
Yeah.
You were motivated. There was an underlying cause for you to violate her.
Yeah.
Um, Another key element in Llewellyn's crime was the panic he described feeling after abducting Sydney. Once he had taken control of the situation and committed the assault, his fear of getting caught seemed to take over, leading him to kill Sydney rather than thinking rationally or considering other options. Llewellyn's actions indicate that he felt trapped and feared, and the consequences of what he feared the consequences of what he had done. This sense of panic may have contributed to his decision to kill Sydney as a way to eliminate the witness to his crime.
Yeah. Who's to say she didn't know him?
Yeah.
She had seen him.
Right. It's a
And-
small town.
Yeah. And she knows who I am.
Exactly.
There's no mistaking me.
After seeing his picture, no.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no mistaking him.
Yeah. So that he must have felt that's his only option. Only option. Only way to get try and get out of it.
Right, but I mean, obviously the rational thinking is not there. I mean, you don't think that, like, I'm sorry, I grew up that if I hit you and I hurt you, I'm not going to hit you,
Okay.
I promise.
Okay.
But if I hit you and I hurt you, there's
Sympathy.
there's remorse.
Remorse.
Yeah.
Yes. Remorse.
Yeah, I have remorse. Like, I don't want to hurt you.
You feel bad.
I feel horrible. I didn't even hit you and I feel horrible even talking about it.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. But growing up, for every action, there's going to be a consequence.
Yeah.
For whatever negative action that you do, there's going to be a consequence. There was something in his little brain, that little tiny brain of his, that didn't care.
Yeah.
He did not care about the consequences until it was too late.
He was so concerned about right then and there.
Mhm. Yep.
That impulsivity.
Impulsivity. Now I can say the word.
No, I'll never be able to.
More
say it.
Malibu, please.
So his confession.
Yeah.
He confesses.
Yeah.
So following Sydney's abduction and murder, Llewellyn initially denied any involvement. He makes you wonder if he was one of those searching. Oh, I'm from this town. I'll help search.
Oh, you know what? And a lot of the times, you can tell I watch way too much true crime. But
They insert themselves into the case. Yes, yes.
Yes. And that's one of the things that police look for. They look to see, is there somebody who's taking a special interest in this case?
Yep.
Are they inserting themselves? Are they trying to figure out, like,
Who
what
did it?
what do the police know?
Can I get away with it?
No.
So investigators quickly pieced together the evidence, including cell phone records and witness statements, which placed him near the scene of the crime. When confronted with the mounting evidence, Llewellyn eventually confessed to his role in Sidney's death. His confession was chilling in its lack of remorse and the apparent lack of any clear reasoning for his actions. While he expressed some regret for what happened, it was evident that his guilt was more about the consequences of his actions than any deep emotional remorse for Sydney or her family. He didn't care.
No.
He was just upset and cared only about himself.
Right.
What's going to happen to me?
Exactly.
Not what's going to happen to this girl. What's going to happen to her family? How's her family going to live the
Right.
rest of their lives without her?
No. No. He only thought of
What's
himself.
gonna happen
He
to
didn't even
her?
think of his wife. What is my wife going to do now
Apparently
that?
not.
Well, clearly. But everything that we do, I know that we do for our families. You think I want to go to work every single day?
I don't.
No. Please, if gotta love the good old TikTok.
Like, make this go viral. We want to quit our jobs. Not that we don't love our jobs.
I love my
Because
job.
that's how we met.
Yes, I love my
But
job.
if we could just do this all day, every day,
It'd be great.
bring it on.
Yeah, but I mean, even crap, I forgot what I was gonna say. I love my job. I do love my job, but I don't know. He didn't think of his wife. We
He didn't
go
think about
to,
anything else
no.
except himself
Oh.
and his hoo-ha.
Yeah, the little tiny pee. But no, like we go to work to help provide for our families. Oh, I remember what I was gonna say. TikTok. So totally off subject. If I didn't want to work, I would have taken up one of the stranger offers from TikTok on, do you have a sugar daddy? No, I don't have a sugar daddy. I have a husband. I'm happily married. But if I was that desperate for like
Myself feet pics.
feet pics, feet finder.
John says I have nice feet. I don't see it, but
But you always have to do a little something to get the money. At this point,
picture of my right pinky toe.
Can somebody just pay off my vehicle, pay off my credit cards, feed me, and tell me I'm pretty, please, and thank you.
Pretty bird.
Yeah, and still let me be married, and I don't have to do anything but have conversation with you. That would be great.
Amazing.
Totally amazing. Let's be real. We're in 2025. That's not going to happen.
No.
But he
see, we
think
about this.
Okay, what happens if I were to quit my job tomorrow? My kids?
We think 10 steps ahead.
Right.
And it's apparent that
he didn't think at all.
No,
he didn't even think of, okay, well,
how's this going to affect?
He didn't even think, how's this going to affect me right now?
How's this going to affect, ABC? He didn't care about nothing except for.
He went total he went total caveman status. Went, oh, pretty girl, club on the head, and decided that he was going to do whatever the hell he wanted.
Yeah. So, going to how we are thinking rational and ahead, as part of this legal process, Llewellyn was subject to psychological evaluations. And while some experts speculated that he might have had antisocial traits, no formal diagnosis of mental illness was made. So this leaves open the question of whether Llewellyn was simply a man who snapped due to internal frustrations, or whether there was there were more deeper, complex psychological factors at play.
Honestly, I think both.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah,
obviously. But I mean, yes, people snap. People snap all the time.
I snap.
I don't kill anybody.
No, that's not on my list.
No. When I snap, I go get a glass of wine, I grab a book, and I go sit in a hot bathtub. And I lock the door and I let my kids sit out there while daddy's out in the living room and go, "Mom, mom, mom, mom."
Yeah, banging on the door.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm always just
Thanks,
like,
honey.
get them out of
Yeah.
my sight. Get out of my
I
sight.
love them
I don't want to talk to
so
you.
much right now, but I need me time.
Yes, yes, yes. This is my me time.
Exactly.
So, um, so there's obviously unanswered questions.
Oh, 100. Yeah, there's
I
always
mean,
going to be unanswered questions.
we've uncovered some.
Right.
I have them. Sure, you have them. And there's a lot.
So much.
And we can't just go sit down and be like, why? Why'd you do this?
Right.
Because he ain't ever gonna tell you.
Well, no, that'd be admitting.
Yeah. So with him, the story of Quake Llewellyn is one of complexity, confusion, and tragedy. And while his past, like we've said before, didn't show any clear signs of violent tendencies,
Like the pyro, the animal harming,
the abuse,
self-harm.
yes, nothing like that. His actions on August 19th of 2020, shattered any illusion of normalcy.
Right.
And the reasons behind his crimes may never be fully understood. Even if he were to probably sit right here and openly admit and say, I did it because of blank.
I wasn't getting it at home, so I wanted to get it some. Yeah.
I had a bad day.
It still doesn't justify. Nothing that he will ever say or do will bring Sydney back and will fill the hole that her friends and family and community feel for her. Still to this day.
So, what is obviously clear is that his decision to kill Sydney was devastating and an irreversible act.
Mm-hmm.
So this case serves as a chilling reminder of how difficult it can be to predict or understand the motivations behind violent crimes.
Right.
Particularly when in there to appear that you have no apparent motive.
Right.
But even if he had a motive, there's no motive there that is easy to grasp.
Right.
Once you step over that boundary of causing harm to someone.
Oh, once you cross that line, there's no going back.
There's no going back.
No going back.
No.
Nope.
So talk to us, and I kind of said earlier about, the charges that he had taken. How do we know, like, the legal process?
So Llewellyn was charged with capital murder, kidnapping, and other related charges. His trial, which took place in the months following his arrest, was filled with painful testimony from Sydney's family and friends, all of whom spoke about the loss of the young woman that they loved. The tragedy of Sydney Sutherland's death reverberated throughout the community of Grubbs and beyond. You felt it where you were.
Mm-hmm. Lots of pink.
Yeah.
I remember, seeing videos of people in it was, hot pink.
Right.
She was a Barbie, she was a Barbie girl, when you think of that, it's just pink, and she's typical
pink and bubbly.
Girly, yes, girly girl.
Yep. Her family, devastated by the loss of their beloved daughter, sister, and friend, worked tirelessly to ensure that Sydney's legacy would live on. They advocated for better safety measures for joggers and for the safety of women everywhere. Honestly,
yeah.
I mean, I can't even go to the grocery store. I'm not saying like I'm not all that in a bag of chips.
It doesn't matter.
I know I'm really showing my age with that comment. But it's the things that you have to think about that. You have to always be aware of your surroundings. You have to be alert. And I mean,
even when you go to get gas, as soon as I step out of the car and I lock the doors.
Right. Yeah.
My kids are in the car.
Exactly.
9 times out of 10,
Well, yeah, and you never know if somebody's gonna try to get in through the passenger side where you can't see, or I don't know what side your gas tank's on, but yeah. Not only that, I mean, even if you're going out with your girls and you're going to a club and you're completely dressed up and you can get in because you look good. But then once you're in, you have to worry about your drink. They literally had to make scrunchies that you could put over the top of your drink and a straw through
Yeah.
so you don't get roofied.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
why?
terrible.
It is. It is absolutely horrible. Why can't, I mean, and it's not just women.
No.
Men go through it too.
Yeah.
But why can't we as a whole, as a society,
Be better.
be better?
Be better.
Just be better.
Be a good person.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Talking about crime is always better with a cocktail. But it'd be nice not to have to talk about crime.
Yeah. I could find something else to talk about.
Well, we could talk about a lot of things with a cocktail.
But, you know,
I know.
crime is one thing that, unfortunately, I don't think ever
Gonna go
gonna
away.
go away.
No, no. Sydney Sutherland's death was a senseless and brutal tragedy, but her story has sparked conversations about the importance of community safety, the risks women face, and the steps that can be taken to protect others from suffering a similar fate. Sydney's family and friends continue to honor her memory, and many continue to run in her honor. So, Sydney's case serves as a grim reminder of the darkness that can exist in the most unexpected places. You don't think that while going on a run that you have been on almost daily
Yeah.
for however long, one day is just going to be your last.
Yeah.
You know,
Can't even imagine.
but it brings forward the courage of those who continue to fight for justice in her name. And as we close this episode, we ask you to think about the safety of those around you and the power of community. If you see something, say something. And I do know, I don't think we mentioned it in here. There is a scholarship in Sydney's name.
Awesome. Yeah.
And I believe it's for nursing students.
Makes sense.
Yeah, if I
Makes
remember
sense.
correctly. I don't know why I didn't put it in here because that's like a huge thing.
I do remember seeing something about there's some form of like not like a little pocket pistol, but they started being able to put in like your running shorts
Oh,
and stuff like that. And that was like just a form of safety,
right.
an additional thing. So,
But yeah, you got pocket pistols, you have mace, you have those cute little doggy keychains where the
the
ears,
pit bulls, yeah,
the ears are the little stabby thingies.
yeah. You just don't want to have to think about that kind of stuff, but at the same time, you do.
You have to.
You have to.
Yeah, you have to. Especially being a young woman raising. I mean, we both have littles, and it's not just the girls that we have to worry about. We have to worry about the boys too.
Yeah.
There's sick people out there.
Obviously.
Yeah. But anyways, we want to thank you for tuning in to Let's Talk Criminal. If you found Sydney's story as heartbreaking as we did, please share this episode to help spread awareness. If you have any thoughts or feedback, we would love to hear from you. We have a website. It's letstalkcriminalpodcast.com. You can definitely leave feedback there under the contact us section, or get swag if you wish. As always, please stay safe and remember sometimes justice takes time, but it's always worth fighting for. Until next time, bye, Sleuth Squad.